Hi, Rochelle with Lady Fermenter. Today we're going to test out what makes a better cider. Fresh pressed or store-bought. Alright, so as I said, we're going to be testing out what makes a better cider, fresh pressed or store-bought. And we're also going to do a couple bonus tests because we're going to test out these 4 cider yeasts from Fermentis. So we're actually going to have 4 tests. Okay. The first thing we want to do is we want to figure out how much sugar is in each of our ciders. And the reason for that is we want to make sure our finished cider is at least 6% ABV, alcohol by volume, or higher.
Why is that?
Well, great question. That's because of safety. This way, if it's at 6% or a little bit higher alcohol by volume, we can store it longer. All right, now you can use a refractometer or a hydrometer. I'm going to use a refractometer because honestly, that's what I grabbed right now. And all I'm doing is I'm trying to get some cider on the refractometer. And then I'm going to just look through the little window, and we are at 1.045. So we really need to be at 1.050. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add, I'm going to take a quart jar because we're doing 1 gallon batches. So a quart is 1/4 of a gallon. And I'll put the metric measurements on the screen for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a quart and we're going to find out how much sugar we need to add. I'm going to start with a tablespoon, and this is just table sugar. Now, of course, we're going into clean and sanitized jars. A clean and sanitized spoon ready. I just wish it was at the beginning of the day. Okay, all right, that was 1 teaspoon into a quart. Oh, it barely moved. Okay, let's do another teaspoon. See if this is any better. It's creeping up. All right. So it just moved. That seems like a lot, but that's okay. So this is the process. You're just going to keep adding a teaspoon at a time. Now, if you want your cider to be a higher ABV, that's fine. Just add more sugar. Making a mess. All right, 150, 1.50. So that's 3 teaspoons per quart. So we will need 9 more to finish off this gallon. All right, so let's see here. It is dissolving. Okay, dissolved nicely. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in here, and then that way I can ensure that they're dissolved. So what did I say? 9? 9. Oops. clean and sanitized. Clean and sanitized. Jugs, funnel. Now, I'm not going to do it now, but I had already star sand, so I made sure that this top of the jug also was star sand. All right. I'm going to stop just so I have some room for the yeast. Okay.
5 grams?
5 grams.
For 5 gallons. So you need how many grams?
I'm going to do 2.5.
Okay.
Okay, my little scale is on. All right, now this yeast, the AC4, promises to give us fresh and crisp cider flavors. Now I know I can just use 1 gram, but I'm going to use 2.5 grams because I'm not planning on making more cider after this series of tests.
Yeah.
Close enough. Look.
Cider. And away we go.
Oh, that's going to go in. I'm making a mess. All right. So for the next gallon, or almost 4 liters of apple juice, I'm going to use the same process. I'm going to check the sugar level of the juice, and then I'm going to adjust accordingly, and I'm going to get it ready to pitch the next yeast. All right, so the second yeast is AB1, and it promises to give us a balanced cider. Now, since I made such a mess the first time trying to get the yeast into the fermenter or the jug, whatever you want to call it, curled up a piece of wax paper, kind of made it into a funnel, and thankfully that worked a little bit better to get both the yeast and the nutrient into the bottle. All right, the third yeast we're using is TF6, and that one promises to maximize fruitiness. So we'll see what happens. Now, honestly, I could have aerated this more, but I think it turned out just fine the way I did it. According to Fermentus, you do not need to rehydrate this yeast. You can just sprinkle it on your apple juice and it'll be just fine. Now, because apple juice does not have enough nutrients to keep the yeast happy and allow them to do a good job, I am adding in nutrient, and I'm using the Omega Proper Seltzer nutrient because it can be used on cider and other ferments. And for our final yeast, we are using AS2, and that yeast from Fermentus promises sweetness and complexity. Now, the one thing I really did screw up on is that nutrient should have been dissolved in warm water or hot water. But I have to tell you that we didn't get any off flavors, so I think the yeast found what it needed. It's easier when there's no bubbles. Ooh, 151. So these I'm not going to measure every bottle like we did the last gallons, because this is processed. So they should all be the same because it's a big vat process to just put in bottles. Once again, we are starting with AC4, and that promises to give us a fresh and crisp cider. All right, so the AB1 is going to give us a balanced cider according to Fermentus. And of course, we are adding the nutrient as well. In this batch, we'll be using TF6, which maximizes fruitiness. All right, so this and our final one is AS2. This one will give us sweetness and complexity to the cider. And just a reminder, when adding the Omega Proper Seltzer nutrient, I did screw up. I should have dissolved the nutrient into hot water before I added it to our apple juice, but I didn't. And you'll see in the results that the yeast was able to find exactly what it needed. All right, so we're ready to start testing our cider yeast comparison and our cider. So store-bought cider, pressed versus store-bought, both bought from Kirkland. All right, this is the SafCider TF, as in Frank, 6. So this one is the pressed. All right, this one's really fruity. I get a lot of the apple peel in this. This one for on the nose or the aroma. Ooh, fruity, tart. So it feels like it dried it out. I don't get a lot of sweetness, maybe just a drop of sweetness. So we'll have to, now that I'm doing this, we'll have to measure and see where it finished. All right, now for the bottled. Oh, this one smells more yeasty to me. Same yeast, we just split them between these two different ciders. For a little fruity. Oh, this one's more smooth. This one has a really nice clean finish. So that's interesting. Store-bought, both from Costco, pressed versus processed. Now this is the SafCider AB1. This one to me, it's like a tartness. Again, really getting that peel, the apple peel specifically. Almost a little musty in the aroma, but really tart. So it feels like it dried it out. That was the pressed. This one, not so much on the aroma, but a little bit more tart, a little bit more drier. So that was the SafCider AB1. All right, so this test is the AC4, the SafCider. Our pressed cider is, the results are. So this one's got an interesting floral note to it. And it almost smells like the flesh of an apple, you know, like the behind the peel to me. And it's a little tart, but completely drinkable. All right, let's see what the processed tastes like. All right, not so much aroma again, a little bit. I mean, if you look for it, you can find it. Fresh, again, that fresh flesh, you know, the meaty part of the apple. Now this one is dry, but flavorful. Doesn't really like kill your taste buds. So it's finishes nicely. All right, cider test number 4. This is the SafCider A as in apple, S as in Sam 2. Now this one's more complex. This one is my favorite one because I get some like white peppery. The apple's there. It's like a fresh apple, but more. I'm getting more of the like white pepper. And that follows into the flavor. It dried it out, but it's not tart. So easy drinking. Okay, now the processed. This one just smells like, if you ever gone apple picking, that's what it smells like, just fresh apples. A little bit of peppery, not as much as the first one. That white pepper follows into the flavor. Nice and dry, very drinkable. So of the 4, I would say I like AS2 the best. So now we know we do not need to wait until apple season to make really nice cider. And if you would please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps. And visit our channel for other time and money saving experiments.